Kick and chase by Mullins. Kick and chase again by Mullins. It'll be a miracle. Oh, it is a miracle. Fafita tries to crash his way over. He does. Fafita got the ball over the line.
Hunter's kick is over the sideline for a 40-20.
Yeah, g'day champions and welcome to 40-20 Sports. Today we're going to have a look at our Supercoach teams. We're going to look at our front row forwards. Now, there's been a few little exciting implements about our team lists for the week 1 trials. A couple of little things there have sort of changed my mind a little bit about how I'm going to run my front row forward. I was going to go a predominant front rower and then potentially a cheapie into 2 bottom dollar cheapies, but I think there's some good value money now in there around the mid-range. I know it's only trials, but there is a couple of little picks that the coaches have done that sort of assumes that some of these players are going to get the nod over a few other players. So we'll dive into that. I think everyone is wondering, if we're going to go the big boys, who do we go out of Tino and Payne Haas? Now, both superstars of the game. If you pick one, you cannot go wrong. Tino has the dual there. He's got front row forward, second row forward. So that's always very handy. He is 791k, so Payne Haas at 750. He's 41k more expensive, but you do get those duals. Big Tino had 4 games over 100. Payne Haas didn't have any, although Payne Haas's consistency was freakish apart from that Origin period. He had a couple of littler games, but again, can't fault either of them. The Tino one, he has the round 2 bye, so that is always going to come into account. Are we going to pay up for a guy that's 791k who isn't going to be on our team in round 2? Or Payne Haas, he's going to be there for the first couple of weeks. I'm leaning towards Payne Haas. Payne Haas, basically because of the people that they've lost there at the Broncos. They've lost Capewell, Palacia, they've lost Flegler. I think there's going to be more opportunity, if that's possible, for Payne Haas to be running, taking the hit-ups and doing all the tackles. It's basically going to be him and Paddy Carrigan. And then I'm not sure who else is going to get the minutes up there at Broncos. Tino, there's a bit of an argument that his front row forward is a little bit more stacked with Keenan Palacia showing up there at the Gold Coast. I don't think that eats into his minutes at all, but I think basically you're going to get what you got last year from Tino. So there's not really an uptick, although you don't need one at 791k and a 77-point average. But Payne Haas, I'm interested in him more than Tino because he has lost all that experience and these gun forwards that are around him. So he could very well go to another level, old Payne. Another thing you need to consider with these 2 big bopper front rowers, They get rested over the Origin period, we all know that, but that sort of drives their average down a little bit. So the first 12 weeks that you've got these guys, their average is possibly going to be more than what their average that they're putting up here is. So another one to consider, if that's your motivation to get these big boys in, sell them at Origin time and pick them back up after Origin, hopefully at a discounted rate, they actually are worth more than what their price tag is at the moment because of those games over the Origin periods where it lowers their average. But yeah, I'm going Payne Haas over Tino just because I think he's going to have a little bit more opportunity around that forward pack, and Tino may stay the same, you know. Next one up is Adam Fanua-Blake. Had a career year last year. He was scoring tries at will. Sean Johnson and Wade Egan fed him ball all day long, and he was near unstoppable 10, 15 metres out. He's at a bit of a discount from the other boys, the big boys there. He is 740k with a 72-point average. Massively low ownership for his year last year. He's only at 9%. He had 2 games over 100, which is huge for front rowers. You don't usually see that. Over the first 7 rounds, he averaged 48 minutes. So there is a bit of concern around that because he is a big boy and he is a massive body. Maybe they warm him up into the year. Maybe the first couple of weeks, you know, they give him a little less minutes, warm him up into the year, which would absolutely benefit Supercoach owners because if Adam Fanua-Blake is at a bit of a discounted rate heading into the Origin period and you've got a Tino or a Payne, he may be the perfect little downgrade. Pick up Fanua-Blake and you can nearly keep him for the rest of the year and his coverage over Origin will be perfect for you. Joe Tarpanay. I think we all expected him to do what he did in 2022, and it didn't really eventuate. His 656k, 64-point average. He is super consistent. He played 23 games last year, which is massive for front row. In 70% of those games, he got 60 or over. Just never really had that ceiling, couldn't really bust over it, and I think his minutes were limited because Sticky is starting to trust these younger front rowers, younger forwards that the Canberra Raiders have developed. I think he's got a lot of cavalry around him with Big Papa, Sami Sorlo. They've got Trey Mooney coming in now, Adam Arriotta, Hudson Young, Whitehead, and now they've bought Hosking. So I don't see him getting any more minutes. Could be one to watch for the first couple of weeks if you've got Horsburgh there. He's suspended for 4 weeks. If Joe Tarpanay goes into a lock position, he could very well be a bit of a choice at the start of the season. I like him. If you're looking for a guy that you just know is going to get you 60 points, he's at a discounted rate from all the bigger guys. So I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. Next one on our list is Mitch Barnett. Sort of flew under the radar a little bit last year. Had a few injury concerns, I think predominantly around his neck. He's at 615k. Dual position, which is awesome. We love to see that. The next guy that you can get, the premium front row forward 2RF, is Tino, and he's 180k more expensive. So if you are looking and you are keen on a front row forward, second row forward, I think Mitch Barnett's a good bet. I think the Warriors over there are developing something very, very special. He was good even at the Knights, so you know he's a bit of a one that's going under the radar. Not many people are picking up. He's low ownership. When he came back from his mid-season injury, he averaged 61 minutes in the middle for an average of 67 points. Now, that is phenomenal for a big boy, playing those big minutes. In those games, he had a high of 126, so he does have upside, but he does tend to stick around the 50-point mark for his average. But yeah, I like Mitch Barnett. I think he's underrated as a Supercoach player. And I think if you pick him based on the duels, you probably can't go wrong. Jack de Bellin's there at the Dragons at 582k. I want to see what happens there with the Dragons. I don't think Jack de Bellin's a pick if he plays lock. We saw last year, I had him in draft last year. Played front row, was awesome. He was punching out 70 minutes at front row. Could potentially do that again, but if he gets picked at the lock position, I'm more inclined to say no on Jack de Belin because he does go to a more ball-playing role. So doesn't just tuck it under the wing, hit up, offload, more ball-playing. Junior Paulo at 577k, bit of an up-and-down year. He really struggled to get any consistency as a Supercoach player. I think there's better value around that price at 577k with Paulo consistently getting games in the 30s, but yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it for Junior Paulo. Next one we'll go to is Taniela Paseka. Taniela Paseka, I actually had him in draft as well. He was good. Before he got injured, he was doing really well for me. Consistency was awesome. He was always there and about 50 to 60 points. Never really dipped down, never really went above. He's super low ownership. Yeah, no upside at 555k. He's a bit of a boring pick. But yeah, like I said, I had him in draft last year and I thought he went well for me. Next one is Max King. Now, Max King is going to be the big dog at the Dogs. He will get the reins. I think he'll play big minutes at front row there. He's 547k based on a 53-point average. He was still getting consistent minutes there at the Dogs last year, but apparently he was playing with a bit of a hampered injury. So I think coming into this year, he'll be fit. He'll also be the number one front rower. They are so light on middles, the Dogs, which we know. Being the main man at the middle with the Dogs, he is averaging 45 to 50 minutes. If you can get that to 55, a tip over what his average was with his minutes last year, I think he's every bit a Supercoach star. Whether you've got 547k for him, I don't know if I'll be running Max King as my premier front rower, just because he's a little bit oddly priced. I think I'm going to look elsewhere for that. And I think you could potentially get guys, 100K cheaper that may have the same output. But I can understand if you're going to go there. If you're a Dogs fan, I'd be picking him up, absolutely. He is going to be the number one guy there for the Dogs this year, up the middle. Ruben Cotter, we'll go with him next. He is at 542K with a 53-point average. He is owned by nearly everybody. For front row, he's one of the most highest ownerships. He's got 28% ownership. Look, I'm worried about Ruben Cotter's upside. I know he's a workhorse. I know he'll play good minutes. I know he will score you 50 points every week. He is 2RF front row forward, but realistically, no one is going to be picking Ruben Cotter in their 2RF. There is way too much value there. Half of his games last year, he scored 50 points or less. So he does have down games as well. I'm not sure about him. I know everyone's keen on him. They saw the year before, 2022, when he went on a bit of a stretch. His points were good. He was up around that 60-point average. But he's still got a lot to contend to there at the front row up there. I think he's a good bet. He's not going to lose you any money. I'm just worried that at 542K, people are going to get stuck with a guy that is consistently punching out 45 to 50 points and not making you any cash and just sitting there. Which, look, he's not a bad one to have sitting there anyway. At 542K, he's reasonably priced. I'm just a little bit worried about Ruben Cotter's upside. I love him as a player. But yeah, Supercoach-wise, I'm not 100% sold on him. Next one up, I'm going to go Jimmy Fisher-Harris at 515K, 50-point average. He's only 4% owned. Best front row in the game, in my opinion. 3 premierships in a row. The thing I like about Jimmy Fisher-Harris this year is that their bench could be a little bit depleted with Spencer Leniu leaving. Now, he could run in for, hopefully, a few more minutes, but we'll have to wait and see. I think him and Leota, they could predominantly use them a little bit more than what their bench is going to get. I'm not really sure how they're going to run their bench. They do have Eisenhuth, who has played consistent first-grade rugby league, but I think they're going to miss Spencer Leniu, and I'm hoping that they sort of accommodate him with James Fisher-Harris and Moses Leota. Just playing an extra 5 minutes a game, it would make all the difference to that team. We saw how good they were as a starting front row and then how they finished the game off in the grand final last year. They were absolutely dominant. So if I saw a team with James Fisher-Harris in there, I would fully understand and I would back it 100%. We're going to have a look at Tom Flegler. He is 17% ownership. I think that's a little bit low considering Ruben Cotter is 28. 475K last year, 46-point average. He will definitely be the number one front rower as the dominant front rower at the Dolphins next year, I believe. He'll be the big boy in the engine room up there. They do have a bit of an aging pack. Jesse Bromwich, Mark Nichols. You've got Jared Wallace up there as well. I think Flegler coming in as a bit of a young blood. He is super aggressive. He's got damaging runs. He does have a sneaky offload, and towards the back end of the year, he was sniffing out a couple of tries for the Broncos up there. He averaged only 42 minutes last year. I can probably see him going about 45 minutes. If he can get to 45 to 50 minutes, he is a slam dunk. Now, even if the minutes don't improve and he does stay at that 42-minute average, in the last 5 games of the year, he was averaging 55 points for 42 minutes. So he does have that high output. If we can get a 55-point average out of Tom Flegler or more, he'll give you 100,000 K. Now, the big thing I like about Tom Flegler is the fact that if he goes to the Dolphins, he won't have to compete for runs with Haas and Carrigan. Haas and Carrigan were always, you watch their setups, they would Haas number 1, Carrigan number 2, and then Tommy Flegler would jump in there. Sometimes he'd miss out a little bit. I think at the Dolphins, he'll be the number 1 front rower. He'll be the one essentially doing what Payne Haas was doing up there at the Broncos, and he'll be taking the first hit up. He'll be commanding the ball a little bit more, and I think he's the safest bet out of anyone. Even if not, he will not lose you any money. There's no way he's going to lose you any money. He's starting in a trial this week, so that'll be bloody exciting to see. 475K. There's no way he's going down. I can only see an upside to Tom Flegler, which I am super, super excited about. Whether you run him as your premier front rower, I'm not too sure. I think if you go Flegler for your number one, you need to have some guy in thereabouts to help him out a little bit. We've got a couple of blokes. Daniel Safidi, not too sure about Daniel Safidi. I think he's probably coming off the bench. He came off the bench towards the end of last year. His brother, Jacob Safidi, was getting the minutes there. Super player on his day. He's a try-scoring front rower, but yeah, just a little bit out of touch for me. Jai Arrow's a big one. Now, he's been selected in the trials on the second row. I believe he'll be on the left-hand edge. Keon Kalamatangi will go to the right. Well, he'll stay on the right, sorry. Jai Arrow is dual position, which we love. He is looking like he's going to take Tallis Duncan's, well, it's not Tallis Duncan's spot, but everyone was talking Tallis Duncan up at the start of the year, saying, yep, awesome, he's going to get that edge spot. Looking more like Jai Arrow is going to get that spot there if the round one teams for our trials or anything to go by. He's interesting at 45 point average, 466k. He's well priced. He's around that mid-range to cheapie. Looks like he's got the left edge for the Charity Shield match. If he gets that round one, interesting, but I think the big thing to take out of that is that Tallis Duncan may be just coming off the bench for the year, or not even the year, the start of the year, and I think you'll see Tallis Duncan's ownership plummet. If that is the case, that is. Next up, we have got Taumalolo. We're going to have a little look at Taumalolo. Now, we've gone through a couple of things here. Yeah, there's Moses Leota, like I said. Not sure about him. Tom Burgess, he's running on a bit old legs. Jared Wera-Hargraves, he's only got a 1-year extension. Leo Thompson, he was there below Jai Arrow. Leo Thompson sort of doesn't get enough minutes, but I think he's the number one guy there at Newcastle now. So if you were looking for a bit of a case, 458k, I can see it. He has been attached to the hip of James Fisher-Harris in all these camps that he's gone into. He, in the Pacific Championship against the Kangaroos, they beat them. They flogged them in the finals. Leo Thompson ran for the most metres per minute out of anyone there. Huge stats. Just whether he gets enough game time, I'm not really too sure about up there at the Knights. Jason Taumalolo, now, he is quite well owned. He's got 8% ownership, which I'm surprised. I thought people would be a little bit off him. Yeah, he has gone down a massive way, I think. Taumalolo at 439k. He used to be one of the number one guys you would pick at front row if he did have those duels. He does have those duels, but again, you're never going to pick him at second row forward. There's way too much value there, so I'm steering clear of Jason Taumalolo. In the last 7 games of the year, he scored 37 points for a 44-minute average. I don't see him getting any more than 44 minutes a game, although I probably don't see him getting any less than 40 minutes a game, which again, depending on where Cotter plays, could eat into his minutes more. He's an ageing front rower. There's rumours that they're shopping him around. I know they've come out and said, no way, we're not doing that, but that means absolutely nothing in rugby league. I think he's one to avoid. I think he could be a massive trap. He could get you there, and 37 points for an average of 44 minutes. I can't see him improving over that. So I'm looking elsewhere other than the big Taumalolo. Now, what have we got here? Griffin Name. I actually like him. I had him at some stage last year over the bye period, I think. Decent, 436k. Straight up and down. If he gets some minutes there, like I said, Taumalolo could be releasing some minutes out of that front row forward. Could be a potential option. A guy that I wasn't keen on at all, and now is screaming at everyone, is Tavita Totola. Now, he is at 435k, 42-point average, only 2% owned. With Jai Arrow going to that second rower, that edge spot, I think they're very, very skinny on their front row forwards. 8 games over 50 minutes played last year. He got an average of 51 points, which is going to net you somewhere around 100k in that vicinity. So he looks the goods, I think. He's got no harm Sele there. Burgess is running on old legs. Also, Jai Arrow moving to an edge. He was doing more of a middle spot last year. I think for Totola, I think he will be the number one guy. So we've been talking about this a little bit throughout this little episode. It doesn't always necessarily mean a front row forward has to get more minutes to be viable. Sometimes he just needs to step up into the position where he will be the number one front rower and he will get those points. I'm huge on Totola. The year before, 2022, he had scores up near 100, scored 4 tries for that year, so he does have try-scoring ability in him. He's got Cookie feeding him close to the line. If he is their number one guy, I'm very interested in Tevita Totola. I think he could be one of the breakouts for the year. We'll skip Bullimore. We'll go Terrell May. Now, Terrell May, I think he was number one on everyone's hot list until he shot his mouth off and said he wants to just go and play with his brothers on a podcast. Bit silly considering the Roosters are a bit ruthless with that. They are all about club first mentality, but his numbers are undeniable. 430k, 42-point average over the year. Over the last 7 games of the year, he had a 53-point average in just 37 minutes. He averaged for those last 7 games. He's got a stacked front row that he's got to compete with for those, but I don't think that'll really bother him. He seems to have a massive motor, massive points per minute, is dealing with the likes of Collins, Hargraves, Spencer Leniu, and White is starting front row this week in the trials. So that is one to watch to see how they like him. But yeah, I mean, even if he gets the 37 minutes, which he is definitely going to get, I see him more as a 40-minute to 45-minute player. 37 minutes, averaging 53 points, massive base, huge base. I think there was a game there he got 60 points just in base alone. He was huge in the semis. They seem to trust him a lot more. I am less worried about Leniu than others probably are with Terrell May. I think Leniu stays as a 30-minute, 35-minute impact player. He's the best at that in the business. I don't see him eating into Terrell May's minutes too much. He is definitely, one to watch at 430k. He's well priced. I cannot get anyone to go off Terrell May. Harm Saleh will go down to. He'll be our next one there. He's going to get an opportunity at the Dragons. 425k. He does have some decent scores in him when he does produce the minutes. The Dragons are going to be quite low on front row forwards this year. They do not have a stacked forward pack. Harm Saleh was good coming off the bench. I just can't trust his minutes. I don't know if they're going to trust the Molo brothers there. What is going to happen at the Dragons is anyone's guess there. Flano, I had massive raps on Flano, but then he's come out and said that fucking Lomax is playing wing, doing a hybrid thing there with Sloan. So I don't know what mad concoctions he's going to come up with there for those players there at the Dragons. We'll just have to wait and see. Matty Lodge, nothing there. Jordan McLean. Fanua Pole's a bit of an option there, but I'll be wait until he gets over his little bye round. Corey Jensen at 413k. He is every opportunity of getting a front row starting gig there at the Broncos. Increased minutes for Corey Jensen could be beneficial to him, but again, we'll have to see. Working our way down, Sean Kepi is 2RF front row forward. I don't see him improving. I think he's still got Burgess and Tevita Totola ahead of him. See him more as a 30-minute player coming off the bench. So, I can't really see him being much viable. Braden Hamlin-Uele is an interesting one. I think he's got good points per minute. If he gets a shot there and he sticks to that front row forward spot, if he gets the reins there, he could be an option at 375k. I could see why people would go him, especially the Sharks fans. He is a barnstorming front rower, but again, not for me. Keenan Palacia. Now, this guy is interesting at 365k. Coming away from the Broncos system, towards the back end of the year, he was massive. He was massive there. The watch for Keenan Palacia is whether or not Tino moves to lock and Keenan gets a front row starting spot there up at the Titans. If that happens, you will see his ownership skyrocket, and I think it'll be worth every bit of cash that you can blow on him. 365k though, very, very cheap. With there, he's got Mo Fotuaika, Tino there, but other than that, they are pretty skinny there at the front row. So he won't be he won't be sort of competing with Haas, Carrigan, Flegler. Those boys were demanding a lot of ball there, taking a lot of runs off him. Can only see an uptick for Palacia. I understand fully if people are going to go him. In my draft pick that I did for the year to start off with, I had him and Payne Haas as my front rowers. Averaged 49 over the last 7 games when he started getting those minutes into his legs. So if he gets around that 50 average, he'll make you 150k, 160k, and could be one to move on to someone else. Dual position as well, so nothing not to like about Keenan Palacia. I like him regardless if he doesn't get the starting front row. I think he'll play big minutes off the bench anyway. We'll go through the cheapies that are sort of viable. There's a lot of guys here, so we'll just run through the cheapies that I think will have an impact on the year. Liam Knight, I've seen him in a couple of teams, 332k. Was keen on him. I thought, yep, an option. He's dual front row forward, 2RF. But seeing the team lists come out for the Bulldogs this week, it looks as though Sam Hughes is starting at the front row with Liam Knight coming off the bench. Now, that's only a round 1 trial team, but it is a good indication that possibly Sam Hughes is going to get first crack at that front row spot, which is music to our ears. Liam Knight coming off the bench, I pray that no one owns him, because if his minutes are down, he will not get you any points. 332k, he will stay thereabouts if coming off the bench. But yeah, that's awesome news for Sam Hughes. I'll be watching him very, very closely over the trials, hoping he gets those minutes, hoping that he gets a good amount of minutes, really, because everyone's come out and told us how fit he is. He's a superstar, how well he's doing. We'll move down now. Spencer Leniu, 332k. He's quite well owned. He's got a good high ownership. I can't see him being used for anything else than what he got used for at Penrith. I think Ivan Cleary showed the rest of the competition what a force he is coming off the bench, 30 minutes. I know he came out and said, yep, I want to be a leader, but that pack is stacked with leaders. They have leaders all around that club. I can't see him going any better than what he's gone the last couple of years. I think he'll stay in that 300 to 400 range. I see him as a bit of a trap because he could potentially be less if they have a pecking order of Collins, Hargraves, Terrell May, Spencer Leniu coming in at 4th. Possibly this White, he's getting a start in the front row this week in the trials. One to watch because the Roosters actually do have a really, really strong side for that game. Fletcher Baker, 311k. I want to see a little bit in the trials. I probably want to see what happens with the Brisbane Broncos minutes. If Fletcher Baker gets a starting role at the Broncos, I'll be jumping all over him, as will the rest of the competition. But he needs the minutes. He is 311k there for a reason. The Roosters used him very sporadically over the year. He was getting 20 minutes a game, 30 minutes a game if lucky. So I'm keen on Fletcher Baker as long as he gets the minutes. If he's the starting front rower there, I will pick him in my side. If he's coming off the bench, I will avoid him, I think, because at 311k, I don't think there'll be much upside in him as opposed to what he's already priced at. So one to watch in the trials. I'll be watching him very, very closely. The next two I'm going to bundle in together, and it goes with what I was talking about with Tavita Totola. Now, you've got Daniel Saluka Fafita and Davey Mawali, 291k and 268k respectively. There is going to be minutes up for grab now. Harm Sele's gone and Jai Arrow's moving into the middle. So at the start, they've got Tom Burgess, Tavita Totola, Sean Kepi. Will he be the number one backup there for those guys? I'm not 100% convinced that he will. Davey Mawali has got massive raps on him. I think everyone owned him last year nearly, but got burnt a little bit. And I think that's why people are sort of staying away from him now. At 268k, if in the trials he starts playing decent minutes off the bench, I will probably jump on Davey Mawali because he does have that upside. He is a try-scoring front rower. He has the potential to do that. Yeah, I just think they're going to be skinny, the Rabbitohs in the forwards, and I think they're going to use Totola up. I think Burgess's minutes will decrease, with Sean Kepi staying sort of around the same. I don't think they bought Kepi thinking, oh, you beauty, we've got a ripping back-up front rower here. I think they're going to blood money. I think they're going to blood minutes into Fafita and Mawali, and I think they could be good little cash cow generations. Not even guys to play in your top 17, but just guys to keep there on the bench. We'll go down. Xavier Willison, saw him in the trials against Winner Manly up there. Awesome for the Broncos. He was probably one of the best behind Tristan Saylor there for the Broncos. Again, I want to see what minutes he gets, see what is up for grabs up there at the Broncos. Highly doubt he'll be in their side for round 1. Well, when I say highly doubt, could pinch a spot, but I doubt he'll have those big minutes. There are a lot of guys up there that are fighting for minutes. I'm just not sure if Xavier Willison, even if he gets a bench role, gets those big minutes. The big one, Sam Hughes, 238k. He has got the starting front row spot there for the trial. I pray that he has a fucking blinder. I hope he kills it. The way they are talking about this guy coming out of the Bulldogs, he is Jacob Preston reincarnated. They think this is going to be his breakout year. 238k. If he does get that starting front row spot, that everyone has just talked about how fit he is. Gus Gould, Carraz came out and said how fit he is. Fittest one at the club. He could be a slam dunk and someone that we've been begging for as a cheapie throughout the years at front row forward. I pray that he has a blinder on the weekend. I'll be watching him so closely. We'll give you a bit of an update of how he goes over the weekend. But yeah, I just hope that Sam Hughes has an absolute corker of a game. Big minutes into his legs, as big a minutes you can in a trial, but gets good minutes into his legs, and he'll be in my team, round 1. Going through, Liam Henry at 238k. He could get a bench spot with Lenu gone. Not sure. I think Liam Henry is probably more of a chance than Maverick Geyer is, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they run that bench rotation there. There is obviously 3 forwards that are going to be there, with a hooker coming off the bench for the Penrith Panthers. Could be an option. I can't see him being a good option even if he is an option at 238k though. If you're clutching at straws and you need a guy in around that mark, I'd go Sam Hughes every day of the week. But if you're going to run 2 bottom dollar cheapies on the bench, Sam Hughes, Liam Henry could jag a spot there, get 25 to 30 minutes, and hopefully he can have a little run there at front row forward, and then you can try and sell him off to someone. I don't know who, but yeah, you could sell him off to someone middle of the year sort of thing. Farmer Silly for the Bulldogs as well. Little whispers that he may be getting a few minutes there. He was getting limited time up at the Dolphins. Excuse me. He's sort of been knocking on the door front of first grade for a little while now, so he'll be one to watch, maybe get some minutes in there. Although he screams Franklin Pele to me, I probably won't touch him, but again, one to look at. Thomas McKayle's another one. He's got the front row spot for the week 1 trial, although it is a very skinny side up there at the Cowboys, so I'm not 100% on Thomas McKayle. He'll be a wait and see. We've got Benjamin Takura. Limited minutes in the trials. Another one, 204k. His ownership is 6%. I think that'll go down to nothing. I don't think he's first grade ready yet. Probably will not make the round 1 side. There is a lot of opportunities up there for up-and-coming front rowers. I just think he is going to have to either wait until Origin comes around or injuries devastate the Broncos. So potentially another one for last year. Besides that, look, that's about all I've got at front row forward. We've got Max Bradbury from the Sharkies. He's getting run in the trials this week, so here's another one that you can watch. They had huge raps on him as a Knights front rower going on through the juniors. I was devastated to see him go as a Knights fan, so he may be one to watch there at the Sharkies. But yeah, that's about it. Again, league code is 726638 for anyone that wants to jump on. We're going to do a merch pack for that. Going to do some shirts. Got some shirts on the way. We've got stickers, hats, stubby coolers. Going to get all that sort of stuff. Get a couple of little slogans on there. Something that just is a bit more affordable for people to wear to the footy even. I'm going to try and tap into that a little bit. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. The league code again is 726638. Jump on. We'll have a bit of fun for that throughout the year, and we'll see how everyone goes. We'll be giving updates on that. Cheers, legends. Take care.